Thank you, Deborah. There have been so many innovations in the last few years, right? Our smartphones, the apps that we all have on them, all of our computers, everything. Driverless cars are on the way, Uber, Lyft. Oh my God, you can work in the car on the way between things here. And I don't know about you, but have you noticed that it just gets busier and busier and busier in our lives? The convenience doesn't seem to take away the work, doesn't seem to take away the tension, doesn't seem to take away the panic. Will I ever get it all done? Is there enough time in the day? Will I meet the next deadline at work? Will I have enough time to spend with my kids? Am I being a good parent? Right? All the stress that happens in our lives. And there is always an answer. I have the great good fortune that my job requires that I pray and meditate. Right? It's an absolute job requirement that I stop and meditate. So that's my checklist if I've done my job today. But it was my job before I had this job. And what is it that would make that a job requirement for your life? To stop, pray, and meditate, right? So we're going to look at that today. One of the other great things about my job is I'm required to do spiritual renewal, to actually consciously renew my spiritual identity, to not spend time in the doingness, but literally in my beingness. And I want to make it a requirement for everyone on the planet. Let's hold that. What if everyone on the planet spent time practicing just being who they really are? And along that line, I want to talk to you about this quote. It's a powerful quote. You may have heard it before, but we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. Rather, we are spiritual beings having a human one. This is from Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. He was a Jesuit priest, an anthropologist, and a great philosopher. And he wrote this in about 1950. It's an amazing idea that unity is in total alignment with. We are not human beings because we were in existence before this body temple. In unity's understanding of eternity, we predate our bodies, and we will exist after these earthly bodies. So you are a spiritual being, whole, light, powerful, intimately aware, and one with God. But the humanness gets in the way. The human doing gets in the way of our spiritual being. And I looked at it because it's really a great big catchphrase, and we use it here. It's emblazoned on our front windows and on our website. We are a positive path to spiritual living. Well, what is spiritual living? What is spiritual if we are spiritual beings? The dictionary tells us that spiritual is relating to or affecting the human spirit or soul as opposed to material or physical things. So something's spiritual if it's not about the physical world. Well, that definition doesn't fly for me because I know my body and your body are an expression of the spiritual world. That our body temples are made in the soup we call God. The soup we call the divine. It's like saying a fish is separate from the water. Well, it's made in the water. It lives in the water. It is part. Everything that's in the water is in the fish. We are in the ocean of divinity, and yet we don't know it, right? We're in the mix of everything that is God. So to separate my humanness out and say, well, that's not spiritual, doesn't work for me. My body is an expression of my spiritual identity. But the word spiritual for me means something larger than my individual self. So my body, my being, is part of my spiritual nature. But spirituality, spiritual means something greater than personal me. Something greater meaning the absolute presence, the one power, the one presence here. And we can sometimes feel it between each other. Can look at each other and without having to say a word, feel each other's heart. Know someone's soul. Touch someone's mind. Know that every single one of us is connected deeper than the physical. It's not about blood relations. It's about God relations. Each and every one of us is a beloved brother, sister, child, parent, all co-creating this world right here and right now. So when we get caught up in the humanness, the doingness, the lists, the stress of the world, the worry about the world, it's time to breathe. It's time to just breathe. To take this moment, and I want you to do it with me again, right? Consciously. Right? So did you get enough air then? If you didn't, do it again. And as you exhale, what do you feel going away? What do you feel leaving in that moment? If we are to renew spiritually, it's about consciously living in the process of breathing. In and out. So what are we letting go of in that out breath? What if that we are looking in our lives, in our human lives, our to-doing list lives, in all the wrong places for all the right things? So we think, I think, I'll own that one. I think sometimes if I get through my inbox, it's a good day. Right? If I get through to zero on every email that came in, not to mention my spam folder, let's not talk about that, but just on my regular email, that it's a good day. Well, what if the goal wasn't to clear your inbox, but have a real human connection with someone in it? Oh, it's not just a point to file it, to mark check on it, but to actually relate with someone? What if it wasn't about getting your kids or yourself to work on time and to school on time, but to spend a moment asking your loved ones, what are they feeling right now? To sit with your partner, your parents, your children, or to pick up the phone and call them and say, what's going on? Even if you're late. Oh, even if you're late. I constantly find ways to avoid the moment, right? But this has to happen. This person's going to be waiting for me. I have to get this done, rather than to be fully present in the moment and allow it to tell me what needs to be done. When I do that, when I step, like this morning, this isn't planned, but this morning, my daughter was here with us. Roma's downstairs right now with the kids, but she was having a meltdown because she was scared I was going to leave her. And so she was having a meltdown, and finally I just stopped and sat down on the floor with her and asked her to tell me what she was feeling. Well, I don't know about you, but I wasn't raised to tell my parents what my feelings really were. I was told to stuff them, right? And that wasn't real, and it wasn't valuable. But in my work as a parent, which is part of my spiritual practice and my spiritual renewal, to sit with a 3-year-old and ask them what they're feeling will make a difference in the world as she grows up and learns to ask people what's going on with them. So what greater thing did I have to do with that moment? I don't know, but my brain was telling me something else, right? My brain was telling me I had this to do and this to do and this to do, and look at this person's going to get up, and I was like, oh my God, deal with this, deal with that. It's the nonsense, the monkey mind that won't let me let go. So I don't know if you guys experienced that ever, but it's a little bit of my life. So I have a couple suggestions for us. A couple suggestions of how you can spiritually renew and own your humanity and your divinity all at the same time. Prayer. Prayer is the most important thing we can do. And when we say prayer here, I'm going to be really clear. If you're taking Deanne's prayer class, if you're taking my class, we don't talk about prayer the same way you may have been raised to understand prayer. If we go with the premise, like I mentioned, that God is constantly giving us everything we need, we use prayer to shift us. So we use prayer to shift our awareness. So I have a question for you, and it's a real question. Are you willing to have your life be different? Yeah? Okay. So that means it's going to change. You get that, right? You realize that you won't be able to operate the same way you do, that you won't have the same things in the same way that you do now, but the things that drive you crazy will also leave. Are you willing, really willing, to change? To be changed at core? To let go of the things you think and believe, to experience that heaven on earth I talked about earlier. That's what we come to prayer for. God, Spirit, I am willing to be changed. I am willing to see this differently. I am willing to let go of my bias, my opinion, and to know the truth. Right? Not to come and tell everyone else, including God, what it should look like. I love that kind of prayer. God, I should have this. Right? It's like, no. Coming fully open. Willing. When we can be willing, anything's possible. But how often do we come to a prayer, to a situation, unwilling, but still praying, and then say, see, it didn't work. Am I willing to let go of this diagnosis? Am I really, really willing to let go of my title, my job, my home? Really, you're willing. Because there might be something greater for you on the other side of what you know. But we hold on to little pieces. Well, my good is coming, but it has to be in this house. My good is coming, but it has to be in this way. So prayer, like this, it comes to this moment, open, vulnerable, peaceful, ready to have the truth revealed to me, and that this situation, this life, shift into the magnificence for which it was made. I offer myself wholly to life, to the earth, to God, so that I and we may fulfill and be what the world truly needs. Amen. When we can be that, the world will never, ever be the same. And that takes practice. That takes daily, weekly, monthly practice and partners. Because my friends, my colleagues here tell me when I'm out of the loop. When ego's running riot, right? And some of my colleagues here even teach me unity teachings at the right moment. It's like, oh yeah, that. Breathe. So we breathe into the moment. Prayer, breath. That's the most important thing we can do. Before you say every prayer, take a breath. After you, take a breath. That 2 minutes can make all the difference. And then the other part is to honor our feelings. To truly let go of something involves grieving. Because at one point, the thing you hate, that you really think you want to get rid of, I bet you at some point you asked for it. Whether it's a partner or a job or a home or a child, whatever it is, you asked for that thing at some point in some way or fashion. And to really let go of it means you have to grieve for the thing you thought it would be, but it's not. And to honor our humanness, be fully human and fully divine, means not to push it down, to squash it, to pretend that you're not sad, but to honor that and say, wow, I came to earth to be able to experience all of my emotions, the joy and the bliss and the pain and the sorrow. Well, if you can't cry at a friend's passing, what's the point of being intimate? God, yes. I'm grateful that they're out of their pain, and I'm sad that I am in mine because I miss them. Honor those feelings. That's how we renew spiritually, to know that we are whole and connected. Time out. Now, I've learned this as a parent recently, that timeouts are not putting your nose in the corner, right? If you're playing football, which I've never done, but have watched on TV, when it's really crucial and the team's really at the point of they're going to win this game or they're going to lose it, and the quarterback's right at the line, what often happens? The coach will call a timeout, and everybody stops, and they go over to the side, and they talk, and everybody has a whole minute or two to figure out what's the best thing to do. Well, duh. Why don't we do that? Why don't we call audible timeouts in our life and really go back to center? They do that in football or in any sport to be able to strategize, to breathe, to let go of the anxiety, and to make the best optimal decisions and plays. Oh, well, what if we employed that in our lives? When I give Roma timeouts now, it's not a punishment. I often go with her, and we go sit in her room in her little pink tent, and we take cuddly animals in, and we have a timeout together so that she can come out and interact with me in a way that's more productive for her. And when I am not able to interact with her in a productive manner, I take a timeout too. I look at her and say, Daddy needs a timeout. And I go and I sit and meditate because I don't want to scream at her. I don't want to scream at my child, but trust me, you all know, you've been parents. It's the quickest thing that happens is we become our parents and start screaming at our own children. There's so many places in our lives we can use this. At work. How many people get frustrated with their boss? Don't raise your hand. How many of the rest of you get frustrated with your boss at work? No, just a couple? How many have ever been frustrated with their boss at work? Okay. Yes, ever. What if we took timeouts in that moment? Literally took a walk around the block. Literally didn't say the thing that got us into so much trouble. Can we go back and do that over again? To ask to see it from a different perspective. Timeouts are for us. They're not a punishment. Let's practice timeouts to renew spiritually. I'm taking a large one this week. In the midst of all this chaos with the building, with everything, I'm going away because of a gracious gift to me for 9 days with Byron Katie in Ojai, California. Time out. It's mostly in silence except to do the work. And it may seem not the time to do it with everything that's going on in my life and here. And so it's the perfect time to do it, right? That's true. Time out can be 2 minutes, 1 minute, or 9 days. It can be whatever you need it to be in that moment. So take time to have timeouts. And then surrender, right? That kind of retreat, that kind of, I don't know. That's what surrender means. I don't know what's best for me or for this situation. And I need to turn it over at the moment. For those of us in 12-step programs, we know that the first most important thing is to admit we're powerless over the situation. Well, you know what, folks? Most of us are powerless over every situation. True. I know that's not what we commonly teach here at Unity. You can be the master of your own destiny. You can set your course. And that's true. But you are powerless over everyone else. And you're powerless over whether those other people are going to be in your scheme for what's best for you. What you are in charge of is your own spiritual human self. So with these steps, you can release what other people are supposed to do, what the world's supposed to look like, what the world's supposed to be, and enter the retreat of your own soul. Surrender, Dorothy. Because when you do, you realize that all the time you have the power to go home. You have the power to experience bliss on earth. When you stop trying to make it happen out there, and you turn within, and you remember that you have the power right here to make life better. Spiritual renewal. I am a divine expression here to make a positive difference in the world. And I spread joy, love, abundance, laughter in my wake. When you all choose to be that whole spiritual being, the world will be heaven. These and others are small ways we get to do it every day. Let's take that to our time of meditation.